President Xi Jinping welcomes Russian leader Putin in Beijing. The two countries signed a range of cooperation agreements. And the Hong Kong government showcases basic housing units as reference for landlords. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. President Xi Jinping held a welcoming ceremony this morning for Russian President Vladimir Putin, who is on a state visit to China. During their talks, Xi encourages cooperation between the two nations, while Putin invites his Chinese counterpart to visit Russia next year. Danny Rao reports.
President Xi Jinping greeted Russian President Vladimir Putin outside the Great Hall of the People in Beijing this morning. Officials from the two nations, including China's Chai Chi, a Politburo Standing Committee member, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, exchanged handshakes with their respective leaders. The welcome ceremony kicked off as national anthems of Russia and China were played, followed by a 21-gun salute. The leaders jointly inspected the Guard of Honor of the People's Liberation Army. Nearly 100 children held flowers to welcome them before the two head into their meeting. During their talk, Xi notes the two sides have maintained close contact for many years, defining the China-Russia Comprehensive Partnership for a new era, which has been continuously deepened. Putin, quoting a Chinese proverb, says a day apart feels like 3 autumns, in expressing his pleasure at seeing Xi. He echoes Xi's sentiments relating to bilateral relations and says countries are committed to building a more just and democratic world order. He adds Russia fully supports China hosting the APEC summit in Shenzhen this November. Putin then extends an invitation to President Xi to visit Russia next year. The leaders also touch on the situation in the Middle East. Xi says the situation in the Gulf region is at a critical juncture and a complete stop of hostilities is imperative. He says China hopes to contribute to easing tensions, de-escalating conflict and promoting peace. Danaral TV News.
During the afternoon large group talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin, President Xi Jinping says the two countries have entered a new stage of greater achievements and faster development. The two leaders go on to sign cooperation documents at a ceremony also hosted at the Great Hall of the People. Gloria Peng has the story.
At the large group meeting between President Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin, Xi says the two nations have developed a comprehensive strategic partnership of coordination for a new era on the basis of equality, mutual respect, good faith, and win-win cooperation amid global turmoil. He says trust between the two nations has deepened and has helped to advance cooperation in areas including trade and economy, investment, energy, science, and technology. Both sides should fully implement the consensus reached between President Putin and me, seize historical opportunities, further consolidate the foundation of mutual trust, enrich the substance of cooperations, and broaden the path of friendship, says Xi. Xi also touches on the 15th five-year plan, saying China is going through modernization on all fronts and will continue to share development opportunities with Russia and other countries. The leaders wrap up their 3-hour talk with the signing of agreement to further extend the China-Russia Treaty of Good Neighborliness and Friendly Cooperation. Other senior officials from the two countries, including Chinese Minister of Commerce Wang Wentao and Russia's Minister of Economic Development Maxim Reshetnikov, then signed another 20 documents detailing cooperation in areas including trade, technology, railroad construction, and energy. Addressing the press together, Xi says the meeting was friendly and fruitful, while Putin reiterates Russia and China are important trade partners, with trade turnover in 2025 reaching nearly $240 billion. Putin hails the two countries' energy cooperation, saying Russia is one of the largest exporters of oil, natural gas, including liquefied gas, and coal to China. Gloria Feng, TVB News.
Harbin, the capital of the country's northernmost Heilongjiang province, is playing host to the annual China-Russia Expo. Organizers hope the event will step up cooperation and exchanges between the two countries. Marking its 10th edition this year, the Expo features more than 500 new products that are unveiled at the event. They include high-end intelligent equipment, artificial intelligence products, and creative crafts, showcasing over 800 new technologies.
我们这次展出的32款。
Li Xiujuan from the Bureau of Commerce and Economic Cooperation of Jiamuxi City says the 32 exhibits can encompass the entire agricultural chain, including plowing, planting, management, harvesting, and transportation. They also hope to secure more overseas orders and turn a successful exhibition into tangible economic benefits. Some 300 Russian companies are attending the expo. Products on display include processed food, textiles, intangible cultural heritage handicrafts, and jewelry. Harbin is welcoming to Russian enterprises, and they hope Russians can make more Chinese friends here in Harbin. Nearly 100 supporting events and more than 20 Russia-related trade cooperation events are also being held at the expo. The Housing Bureau showcases 2 converted basic housing units for landlords and tenants to reference. This as the government receives at least 4 certification applications for renovated units since the Basic Housing Units Ordinance came into effect 2 months ago. The government borrowed a roughly 400 square foot flat in Kowloon City from the Urban Renewal Authority and converted it into 3 subdivided basic housing units as a type of show flats. One room near the entrance originally failed to meet the minimum size requirement of 8 square meters under the floor plan. Part of the space on the left was originally the neighboring unit's toilet. About $10,000 was spent altering the partition layout so the room size could meet the requirement. A separate toilet was then added to the adjacent room at $40,000, making it the most expensive part of the renovation. Some units used light wells for natural lighting and ventilation to comply with government requirements, including the installation of separate water and electricity meters, as well as fire safety equipment. Renovation costs for the 3-room model unit totaled around $160,000, or more than $50,000 per basic housing unit. Another demonstration unit in the same district, measuring 270 square feet and divided into 2 rooms, involved simpler modifications. The work mainly included installing fire safety equipment and separate utility meters and improving ventilation for an originally windowless toilet. The renovation cost roughly $30,000 per unit. Victor Tai, Undersecretary for Housing, says the government renovation team handled the work, though external contractors were also consulted, noting that they referenced both market quotation and government project costs in determining the listed prices. After renovations are completed, landlords will need to hire qualified professionals themselves to carry out certification. The government says the certification cost for each subdivided unit is about $3,500 at market rates. The Basic Housing Units Ordinance took effect in March. Authorities have so far received at least 4 certification applications for renovated units, which are currently under review. Jason Chan, Principal Assistant Secretary for Housing Special Duties, says in the first year, the priority is registration. Once registration is successful, landlords will have a 36-month grace period, making up a total transition period of 48 months to complete the certification process. Landlords who submit grace period registration applications before September can have government certification fees waived. Authorities have so far received around 11,000 applications. The Housing Authority launched a reward scheme for reporting public housing abuse early last year. And as of March this year, it had received 5,400 real name reports. Responding to a written inquiry from a legislator, Secretary for Housing Winnie Ho says of those reports, about 900 could be further pursued, with 25 substantiated cases. The investigation periods for these cases range from 3 to 8 months, depending on the complexity of the case. Cases involving false income reporting or overseas properties require information from other departments and take more time to investigate. The 27th World Customs Organization Asia-Pacific Regional Heads of Customs Administrations Conference concluded today in Hong Kong. Commissioner of Customs and Excise Chen Zi-tet reveals that Hong Kong had received unanimous backing from participating members to continue serving as vice chair for the Asia-Pacific region through 2028. The 3-day meeting marks the highest-level annual customs conference in the Asia-Pacific region, with the World Customs Organization Secretary-General Ian Saunders having been invited to attend the event in Hong Kong. Over the past 2 years, Hong Kong Customs organized 18 events to promote knowledge sharing and cooperation among Asia-Pacific members. Customs Commissioner Chen Zhi-Te said Hong Kong Customs would continue its efforts to enhance regional law enforcement effectiveness.
Because we have common purpose. No matter the differences in geopolitics, different customs administration, we still seek to cooperate.
He said there is unanimous support from members for Hong Kong to serve as vice chair for the Asia-Pacific region through 2028, reflecting the region's trust and recognition of the SAR. The appointment is expected to be formally endorsed next month. The conference has gathered more than 120 heads of customs and senior officials from around the region, alongside delegates from the WCO's regional entities. Separately, Chen said illegal fuel transfer activities rose significantly in April compared with the same period last year. Over the past few months, customs officers seized 8 vehicles linked to cross-border petrol smuggling into Hong Kong. U.S. President Donald Trump said he was an hour away from ordering strikes on Iran, but some of the Gulf allies urged him to pause, believing they are close to a peace deal. However, he didn't rule out further strikes on Iran if an agreement cannot be brokered. Meanwhile, Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister for Legal and International Affairs briefed members of the country's parliament's National Security and Foreign Policy Committee on the latest developments of the talks with the U.S. Daniel Rao tells us more.
US President Donald Trump said he was an hour away from ordering strikes on Iran, but some of Washington's Gulf allies urged him to pause, believing they're close to a peace deal. Trump said he's giving Iran days to make progress in negotiations to avoid his planned resumption of strikes, but then suggested he might give Tehran a week. However, he said if no progress is made on a peace agreement, the US may need to strike Iran again.
You know how it is to negotiate with a country where you're beating them badly, they come to the table, they're begging to make a deal, because they're begging to make a deal. I hope we don't have to do the war, but we may have to give them another big hit. We may have to give them another big hit. I'm not sure yet. You'll know very soon.
US Vice President J.D. Vance said it is not always clear what the desired outcome of Iran's negotiating team is.
It's not sometimes totally clear what the negotiating position of the team is. And I don't know if that's sometimes bad communication, if that's bad faith. I wouldn't pretend to venture a guess there, but I will say with confidence, it's sometimes hard to figure out exactly what it is that the Iranians want to accomplish out of the negotiation. So what we've done is tried to be as clear as possible.
Elsewhere, according to Iran's official Islamic Republic news agency, Deputy Foreign Minister for Legal and International Affairs Kazem Garibabadi briefed members of the country's parliament's National Security and Foreign Policy Committee on the latest developments of the talks with the US. The IRNA said Iran's latest proposal to the US centers on several key issues. These include preserving Iran's right to uranium enrichment and the peaceful use of nuclear energy, and ending hostilities on all fronts, including that in Lebanon. The latest proposal also demands the US lifts its naval blockade against Iran, unfreezes Iranian assets abroad, completely withdraws its troops from the areas surrounding Iran, and compensates for war damages. Daniel, TV News.
2 teenagers who shot and killed 3 people in an attack on a California mosque were radicalized online, where they first met and shared white supremacist views, according to authorities and writings they penned. Investigators also found at least 30 guns, ammunition, and a crossbow at 2 residences after Monday's attack in San Diego, and were trying to uncover whether the shooters had broader plans. Tracy Furness has more.
Photos of the 3 victims killed in Monday's shooting at a San Diego mosque.
The victims who lost their lives yesterday were there to help others, be part of a community that came together in peace. Instead, they were confronted by teenagers who appear to have been radicalized online to believe that they didn't belong because of how they looked or where they worshipped.
Police say firearms were found at the homes of the suspects, who are ages 17 and 18.
We've executed 3 search warrants at residences associated with the subjects. During those searches, we found and seized numerous firearms from 2 of those locations, including numerous pistols, rifles, shotguns, ammunition, tactical gear, as well as electronics. So far in this investigation, we've seized over 30 guns and a crossbow.
Authorities praised the men who died, including Amin Abdullah, a well-liked security guard at the mosque.
He never stopped smiling to anyone, our community members, as well as our visitors. If it was not for him, as Chief mentioned, the carnage would be much worse.
A vigil was held in San Diego Tuesday as the city's Islamic community grieved for the 3 men killed during the mosque attack. Yasser Kazia, whose father was killed during the attack, paid tribute to his father, who ran a local store.
Whether he was forgiving you for that Snickers bar, that you didn't have that dollar, or for stirring up that Ramadan lentil soup that you all love. He knew his one purpose was to serve this beautiful community that we were born into, literally. But there was also another crucial role that he played, which was as a husband, a father, and a grandfather. He was not only a pillar of the community, but a pillar of our household.
Tracy Furness, TVB News.
A research team from the University of Hong Kong has pioneered a combination therapy to improve treatment outcomes and survival chances in patients with acute myeloid leukemia. Samantha Lee reports.
Acute myeloid leukemia is a lethal blood cancer with an annual average of about 300 new cases in the city. Among these, FLT3 is the most common genetic mutation, and patients respond poorly to traditional treatments, with a high relapse rate. 56-year-old Mr. Sito was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia in 2017. He took conventional chemotherapy and a bone marrow transplant. Unfortunately, he suffered a relapse the following year. He then received a 4-month combination therapy called QISM, which involves injecting 2 medicines to suppress FLT3 and protein translation respectively. He recorded that during his treatment, he just had to sit for 3 hours while the medication was injected. His conditions improved, and he noted that the combination therapy produced minimal side effects. Medical examination later detected only 0.026% of abnormal cells. Between 2017 and 2020, the HKU team recruited 40 patients who did not respond well to chemotherapy to undergo the combination therapy, achieving a composite complete remission rate of 83%.
It's basically a discovery, because when we first started it, we don't expect any change on the immune system. But we did a lot of laboratory studies and showing that if you combine the 2 drugs together, you actually activate the immune system. In particular, the T cells become activated.
The research team says the study demonstrated the clinical potential of QISM, enabling more high-risk patients to become eligible for hematopoietic stem cell transplantation. Samantha Lee, TV News.
And that's the news. Thank you for watching.